Good evening and welcome to the final round of our 1986 Formula 1 Championship, coming to you tonight from Australia and the, would that be 51st Foster's Australian Grand Prix? Could be 21st too. I honestly don't know what L stands for in Roman figures. But we're here at Australia and the old Adelaide layout, and with me in the booth I have Ryan Walker and Alberto Ibañez. Good evening, gentlemen.
Hey, good evening.
Good evening, everybody. What a season finale that we are waiting here for. I'm really looking forward to this.
This is going to be a lot of fun and a lot of probably handy action around this place. While it's fairly tight, there are some very, very good passing opportunities. Wouldn't you say, Ryan?
Yeah, absolutely. There's plenty of passing opportunities, especially that back straight heading up to the hairpin, and don't be surprised if you see plenty of slipstreams battles happening down there, or even some drivers making a mistake and just running wide, or even little accidents. But yeah, it's a great track, and it's a great track to round out the season with.
Yeah, it's absolutely. I mean, when you have passing opportunities, you have two kinds of tracks. Those where the track provides you with the passing opportunity in terms of the easy layout. So you basically use the power of your car to make your way through. Or those that are driver tracks, that are the tracks where the driver can find the opportunity to pass, go for the gap. And absolutely, Adelaide is one of them. We're going to see a lot of action here, but it's going to be a lot of action for the skillful ones.
Well, to be fair, I think everyone will have their hands full no matter what skill level they do have. Adelaide, known as somewhat of a car breaker track, I'd say, and definitely one of the more fun ones to watch on the schedule.
Yeah, Little Al was reminding me that in '91, I think it was, that he told me, they spend more money here fixing cars after all the crashes than they had spent in nearly all the previous season. I mean, in terms of damage.
That's a bit daunting. While we have a minute left, let's actually take a lap on board around this track, just so you all get to see what it looks like. Aboard with Grand Prix all. Coming down the front straight, with a missed gear. Okay, so he aborts that, that's unfortunate. Let's see if we have anyone else coming around shortly. David Saber, maybe. If he decides to do one more lap here. As he's sitting in behind the... No, he goes in, but Dave Miller continues. Let's see if we can find Dave on the... There he is. So across the start-finish line, going into the Senna S's, as it was later known. I don't think that was the name of it in this particular year. Through that right, left, right, and then a 90-degree right-hander up here. And sweeping to the right, back to the left through this 90 left, with a bit of a dip in the middle. And then 90 right. And here is where it differs with the modern layout, where we continue straight on here. Through a sweeping left and right S's section. Quite daunting curbs, and then a tricky braking zone into another 90 left. And then this track's turn 8 with massive curbs, and the place where Mika Häkkinen had a horrendous off in 1994. And then down the back straight where Nigel Mansell had his 1986 woes. Down into a very, very tough braking zone, into the hairpin. And unfortunately the session turns over, but I think most of us will recognize the layout after the hairpin. And
it's clearly a street track. I mean, it's all surrounded by walls, which means it's very unforgiving. Traffic is going to play a role here, even if there are some, as we have seen, some passing points. But still, it's going to be complicated to manage the traffic, the tires, and everything. Being it start and stop track where you are accelerating all the time. You could expect a very high fuel use. So they are going to have to manage carefully that thing. I expect a lot of short shifting here. And it's going to be very, very challenging for the brakes. So let's see if we are not in for some unexpected happenings towards the end of the race.
Well, definitely a possible worry for sure. But also one of the more fun possibilities. As we can see, a beautiful grid here. We're just waiting for the formation lap to get underway, and here we are. So Gabriele Del Piccolo picks up pole position for Benetton Formula, with Tim Hiller for John Player Special Team Lotus in second. His teammate Richard Wilkes, our champion, lines up third for this final race, with David Yates for Benetton in fourth. So Benetton and Lotus taking care of the first 4 places on the grid. Jon Team with a very impressive qualifying in fifth for Team Tyrrell, with Jules Bourgeois likewise a impressive qualifying for sixth for Team Haas. Juha Bors lines up seventh for McLaren, with Anders Nielsen, the first of Ferraris, in eighth, and his teammate looks to be in ninth in the form of Richard Coxon. Brian Yannick with a top 10 qualifying, rounding out the top 10 for complete brain fade of the name. Williams, thank you. Ray Riddle lines up 11th for Ligier, and Adam Hackman, no, he's not in the Williams, is Yannick?
No, it's Hackman indeed in the Williams.
Indeed, so Yannick is in...
Yannick is in the Williams Benetton. Sorry. We're having here, as you say, a brain fade.
Oh well, we'll take care of it later. Hackman 12th for Williams, David Saber 13th for Tyrrell, Mike Olsen 14th for Team Haas, with Schlapinski 15th for the Sark Speed team, Brun Chacon 16th in the second of the McLarens, Keo Michiels the best Minardi in 17th, Louis Stevens the best of the Ocellas in 18th, very impressive there, Francisco Amaral in the second Williams 19th, François Aramen, the best of the Arrows, in 20th, with Luciano Rocha 21st. Alberto Junior, Alberto Crino, in 22nd for Minardi. Oscar Team lines up 23rd for the AGS team. Dave Miller lines up 24th for Sark Speed. Alan Santo 25th in the second of the Arrows. Rodrigo Nascimento 26th in the Ocella. And rounding out the grid is Grant Riddle in 27th for Ligier. Presumably he didn't get to take the qualifying laps here.
So to quickly clarify, since we both were confused by the livery, and I guess we have in mind the most recent Formula One. So what Brian Janik is actually driving is a BRM, Motor Racing Developments. They were using the BMW engine back then. And Williams is indeed the Williams Canon team.
As the green flag is about to come out here. One right, two lights. And the race is underway. And it looks like Gabriele Del Piccolo has had a good start. Oh no, there's a big crash! Oh, that's very unfortunate. That's a lot of drivers involved. Oh, and look at this at the first chicane. A lot of stuff going on there. Let's see.
With a front wing, he barely managed to go through the... Oh, Richard Wilkes also without the front wing.
And
David Yates, that was really, really bad luck. I mean, the car was basically getting sideways on the start. He clipped the front of Richard Wilkes and John Tim, I think. We should look at that replay. But yeah, they were weaving around.
Wow, but look at this in the meantime. Taking the lead of the start is Jules Bourgeois now.
Yeah, that was a great start by him. After that, he was something to the lead, but I think it'll not be long before Gabriele Del Piccolo takes the lead from him with that BMW power. But Anders Nielsen is another one that had a great start, and also you had Boss as well.
Indeed. Notice Grant Riddle is... Oh, there's contact between Coxon and Saber. Saber locked up and hit Coxon quite hard in the rear in the hairpin. Meanwhile, Grant Riddle is up into what I think is 14th already. Very impressive pace, and we can see all the limping cars. Wilkes, Equino I think is limping slightly. Nascimento might be slightly limping. Mike Olson for sure. So Jules Bouchard leads the opening lap with Del Piccolo second, Nilsson third, Bors fourth, then followed by Hiller, Yannick, Riddle, Ray that is, Saber, Hackman, Schlapinski, Coxon 11th at the moment, Chacon, Grant Riddle, Remen, and I believe that was one of the Minardis there in 13th at the moment. And look at this, Jules Bouchard is actually pulling away from Del Piccolo at the moment. Meanwhile, Del Piccolo is under heavy pressure from Anders Nilsson in third.
Yeah, I wonder if Jules is just using a little bit of boost to pull away and leave Gabriele to battle Vanders, or if maybe Gabriele is just taking his time and just taking his time to settle into the race.
Look at Brian Janik, that's some top speed there. Very easy pass there on Tim Hiller.
Oh, for sure.
I don't know if it was the turbo or just the fact that the BRM is so quick in the straights. But well, that looks really easy.
Could definitely be. Grant Riddle up to 12th, passing Chacon down at the hairpin too. Michiels is the Minardi in 14th. And Bouchard leads lap 2 too. Very impressive indeed. As you say, it might be a bit of turbo. Unfortunately, Richard Wilkes has also retired in this race, and I can see Jon Team in the pits probably trying to repair the car. So that's a very unfortunate situation for him. Very good qualifying, but only getting about 100 yards or so. As I can see, I think that's Amaral into the pits for some repairs in the Williams. It looks like Johan Bors 2 in 4th is starting to look a little bit racy. And Coxon back up into 9th past Hackman.
There is now Gabriele Del Piccolo closing in on Jules Bouchard.
Ooh, and having a bit of a go at the hairpin.
No, look, I mean, that was a very careful move by Gabriele. It was like very tentative, like trying to feel his way. And it's understandable because Bouchard is not a driver that you see usually up there. So Del Piccolo is not used to that. And make no mistakes, I mean, these drivers are absolutely at the top when they are driving against the guy they are used to. When they are driving against an unknown, they are very careful because they don't exactly know what's going to happen. So Del Piccolo knows there is a lot of race there still to go. And he was just basically showing Bouchard, hey look, I'm here, I can pass you, but it's like, what are you going to do? And Bouchard very unpolitely basically replied, look, I'm going to shut the door on you.
Oh, and look at
Adelaide, look at round and I'm going for a win.
Quite so. Brian Yannick with a beautiful move on Johan Bors down into turn 3, 4, 5 that would be. Going around outside at turn 4 and amazingly keeping the overlap going and then down the inside into 5. Absolutely beautiful move.
That's a good example of what I was saying. I mean, drivers that know each other, they know what they can trust and they can very well push the limits even more than those who are really not comfortable with the car in front. Wow, Brian Yannick seems to
wow. I wonder if he's
pushing the fast forward button.
Quite so. I wonder though, is he using more fuel than the others? Because that's another car where we rarely have seen up into the very top end of the field, so a bit tricky to know exactly what kind of fuel they can make in that car.
Well, assuming he has the fuel under control, this could potentially be a tire situation because as Richard Coxon kindly told us before the race, this is a race where you can either see 0, no pit stop, or 1 pit stop. So there's going to be a very big difference for those who are going for a pit stop and those who are not. The drivers who are not doing any pit stop, they are going to have a steady rhythm. They are not going to really worry about the cars that are overtaking there. They are going to mind their own business. Whereas those who are going to do a pit stop, they are in a hurry, obviously. They need to catch up. They need to make a big distance difference between them and the cars behind. So this could very well be the case for Brian Janik. Maybe he found out that he's going to burn a lot more rubber than other cars. He's going for a pit stop, and he's absolutely on the foot now.
Yep, and meantime, go ahead, Ryan.
I was just going, yeah, you beat me to it. I was just about to say that Gabrielli's making the move and he's taking the lead into the hairpin.
It looked fairly easy with a bit of boost and a good run through the corners before, if I read that right.
Yeah, well, the Benetton have then become a very quick car, a top car towards the end of the season. And being in the hands of Gabriele Del Piccolo, it was just a matter of time until the poor Haas was going to be overhauled. That's for sure. But still, Buchard is doing a great job here today.
Definitely so, and Brian Janik likewise keeping well up with some of the faster machinery, and I suppose you could say also drivers in this particular championship.
Yeah, we're not going to discover Brian Janik's talent today. I mean, he's a very quick driver. He knows very well how to extract the maximum of the car. He's way past his car now. He seems to go really wild here, sideways and all that, but that's what you get in this kind of tracks. I mean, imagine you have reduced grid, but this is not proper racing car. This is basically a street. And you also get those 90 degrees corner where you're going to get cars sideways and all that. Look at that.
Yeah.
I mean, Piccolo locking here. We're seeing here more wheel locking and the braking that we have seen in nearly all the season except Monaco. And that's because of the nature of this start.
Partly that, and partly the fact that, along with Monaco, this is probably one of the heaviest braking tracks on the calendar, and Janik took advantage of Buchard. I think missed a gear down the back straight, and Janik up into second, so this could be a very interesting fight here between Del Piccolo and Janik. Buchard, though, still in third, with Nilsson still in fourth, Bors fifth, Hiller still in sixth, and then Ray Riddle under attack from Richard Coxon. Ooh, that looked a little bit close. Both of them survive and live on to fight another day. Oh, and Coxon running a little bit wide there, nearly climbing over and onto the grass past the curbing there.
I hope that you can see that also in the broadcast. There's a big amount of marbles when you're going outside the racing line here. So you got to be really careful in this track, because if you put the tires you're leaning on in the marbles, you are going to have a slippery ride.
Definitely true, and Grant Riddle starting from the back up into 9th, just ahead of David Saber in the Tyrrell. So despite Jon Team having troubles in the best qualified Tyrrell, Saber still running inside the top 10, which is nice to see. Oh no, there's contact there between Hackman and I think that was Chacon, and I think unfortunately Hackman is out of this race.
Ooh!
Oof, nearly out of this work because he hit the wall really hard.
Yeah, that's...
I think that was calling it simply might be much, but I think Chacon missed his braking point, and unfortunately Hackman was in the way, and that's that, as you say.
We would need to check that, but I think that for some reason, Brian, Hackman maybe had braked a bit too early, but we should see. In any case, it's interesting that Chacon did not go into the pits. It seems that he's going for another lap. Okay, he's signaling repairs now.
Well,
he seems to be now aware of the lack of front wing.
Could be that the final sector ain't that quick. Turn 1, 2, 3 is the quickest turns really on the track, along with the S section he's coming up to now, so he may not have noticed.
Action. There's Jules Bouchard. Poor Jules, he's going backwards now with the Haas having had his 5 minutes of glory. Anders Nilsson just went by, and he has now a traffic jam behind him. That's Juha Boss and Tim Healy looking to find a way past.
Yeah, look at this. And meantime, Coxon tried to move on Ray Riddall, but he locked the inside right front and went straight on at the hairpin, lost a bit of time, but no position back there. As you say, the battle for 3rd, 4th, 5th and 6th is really on right now.
Yeah, absolutely. It's, I was about to say, it was good to see Jules up at the front fighting, but like Alberto mentioned, he's slowly falling backwards now just because the cars behind are just slightly more power, just have more power, and yeah, the Haas just doesn't have as much power, I think. So it's just a case of Jules trying to hold on for the best result possible. But I think if he keeps out of trouble, you never know, he might be able to finish in the points in the top 6, but a top 10 result is definitely at the moment on the cards.
Oh, and here comes Bors up the inside into the hairpin's braking zone. Bouchard trying to hold on around outside though. Getting very close there, but he holds on for now. So it's definitely what you're saying there with trying to hold on for the best position. And I mean, his car is probably lighter than many of the other cars around him, so his brakes could probably have an easier time, and maybe he can have a bit of luck with some retirements later in the race too to climb even further up the top 6.
Yeah, it's quite possible. I mean, he managed to pull away from Juha when Juha tried to make a move, but with Juha being on the inside rather, he just didn't carry enough momentum on the exit of the corner. So Joe's fair play to Jules though. He's putting up a good defensive defense at the moment.
Definitely so. And I notice Yannick is keeping Del Piccolo honest at the moment, around a second up front. As I seem to have notched some bottom because I don't get the... Okay, now it does. Okay. Just taking some time there with the automatic scrolling for the standings. And Bors not able to make a move this time round. You see, I noticed there's a bit of a tight run back here with Coxon still trying to get past Ray Riddall, and now Grant Riddall is catching up too. So a Ligier Ferrari sandwich upcoming here. And I know the Ferrari drivers were feeling a little bit despondent with the 5-gear gearbox that they are running here. Oh, Ray Riddall with a mistake and Coxon straight through.
That's all it takes.
Very neat little opportunistic move. Oh, I think Ray Riddall had a... Oh no! The Ligier teammates have hit each other. Father and son in contact, and both of them are out.
Yeah, but I try to think what both of them are saying to each other at the moment, and probably a lot of swear words being thrown around.
Well, that's very
like father, like son.
That's so unfortunate. Ray Riddall lost it running wide on the curbing, and Grant likewise had a bit of a loose, and Ray Riddall had spun to the inside of the track and ended up right where Grant saved the car to be in heavy contact, and unfortunately both of them out. Dear me, that's not how they wanted to finish that out.
But anyway, this is a big attrition track. We knew things like that were going to happen, so everybody wishes it's not what happens to them, but in the end, someone must pay the price.
Very much so, and I notice up into the top 10, Francois Remen in the arrows. That would be a very nice way for him to finish off the season. I know he's had quite the lackluster season for himself, but if he can get this finish, I reckon he'd be very happy with that. Likewise, right behind him at the moment is the Serge Lapinski in the Sark speed. Not the quickest car, but driven well, it can certainly score points on a attrition-y day, and as we mentioned, this track could very well see that being a case. Dave Miller currently holding up to 12th ahead of Luciano Roja. Mike Olsen 14th in the second of the Hases, with Alan Santo 15th, Lewis Stevens 16th. Alberto Equino in 17th, with Chacon back out after his replaced front wing in 18th. Rodrigo Nascimento in 19th. A couple of retirements, then Jon Team still running in 22nd, and Francisco Amaral still running in 23rd, with Oscar Team also running in the AGS in 24th.
That's a weird situation now going on between Jon Team and Bruno Chacon, because Bruno indeed has no blue flag. He doesn't have to give way to Jon Team, because he's probably around a lap ahead. I don't know, because he's on a much better position, but Jon Team is absolutely desperate to go by, and he cannot get by that powerful McLaren, but he's trying. Only, of course, Bruno is not obliged to let him through.
I heard some kind of contact, I wonder. Not the Ferrari.
So meanwhile, Tim Hille has passed Juha Boss.
What happened somewhere else on the track?
Juha didn't seem to be able to get past Jules Buchard, so Tim Hille decided it was about time he made his own drive. He overtook Juha Boss and is now trying to make his way past Buchard.
That was Keo Michiels, sorry to cut you off, who retired right then. He locked a rear brake going into the tight left after the hairpin.
There goes Hille. Renault power there at play. And he made it past Bouchard. Bouchard, we should really ask him how it's spelled.
Well, considering his way up there, I don't think he minds either way at the moment. Because he's still well within striking distance of some very good finish positions here.
Well, he's one of our Canadians, so if he's a French Canadian, I guess it would be Bouchard, or something like that. But if he's one of the English Canadians, then that would be something different.
Quite so. Still fairly close at the front, about seems to circulate around 1.5 to 2.5 seconds. Yannick definitely keeping Del Piccolo honest. Hille now blasting past the Ferrari too, so Nilsson out 4th again. Owen Boss breaking up the inside of Bouchard down into the hairpin. Oh, and again Bouchard holding on around the outside and keeps the position. Some great defensive driving from Bouchard in this race.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, he's in no need to give way to others. Oh, look at that rocket. Now Juha Boss is going to let him know what that Porsche engine is about. I mean, it didn't work out, but Jesus, that was a speed differential if I ever saw any.
Quite slow, let's see as they head onto lap 15 and into the turn 4.
And Tim Hille seems to be also on the run because he got past Anders Nilsson. But none of them is really getting away, so it's probably a matter of them getting a bit too liberal with the boost knob, getting in front and then thinking, oh no, I'm not making the fuel. Turning down the boost knob, and there you go, you got the train again.
Definitely a possibility, although there looks to be a bit of a gap now because we had one of those sellers getting in between Nilsson and Tim. Well, let's see, Boss now with the boost. Despite the slipstream for Bouchard. Bouchard breaking up the inside of Nilsson into the hairpin. locking up slightly, but it looks like he takes the position instead. Well, they say attack is the best kind of defense, and Bouchard definitely showing that right here.
Probably none of these guys saw that coming.
Well, I reckon Nilsson saw it coming because he didn't turn in on Bouchard there, but that looked fairly close. And it looks like Richard Coxon at the moment is able to slightly close in on these fellas too.
And I'm starting to think that even if Bouchard might have found that extra speed that he was looking for, probably it's also a matter of tires. We didn't look at the tires at the beginning of the race, but maybe he's going in for a stop whereas the other cars have not, and that could very well explain the speed differential that we are seeing now.
Could be. I think someone just had a crash in... Oh no, that's François Remen! Oh, looks like he's scrubbed the wall already. Car was crabbing down the back straight, and then as he tried to brake for... Oh dear, okay. And it looks like Remen decided that the car was undrivable.
There he goes, he makes him smooth. Juha was trying there to benefit from the situation, but he just could not because Bouchard closed the door.
I mean, while they are slowing each other down, I think they are quite enjoying this little fight here.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think Jules will be enjoying this, considering, or he might be surprised as well, because the Haas is normally further back in the field, but it's up in 5th place at the moment, and I think Jules will be loving it. Oh, is he right to curbs ever so slightly? I thought he was running wide there.
Oh, Bors up the inside.
Oh!
Oh, easy boys. Backs out of it. Bouchard holds on to position. Bouchard with a bit of a wobble and bobble going through the first chicane, and Bors trying to take advantage. That looked very close. Well, look at that, number 27, Richard Coxon really closing in on this lap. Visibly quicker through the turn leading on to the back straight. Well, now Bors again looking up the inside, but Bouchard really late on the brakes. Looks like he really has that Haas well tuned for the braking zones around this track.
I should mention, while we are focusing on this battle, that at the top everything is the same. Gabriele is leading, but watch out because Brian Janik is really not that far behind, and he has been consistently there all the time, which leads me to think that he's basically controlling the race. Although Gabriele is a very, very long-term thinking driver, and it wouldn't surprise me that if Brian is thinking that he has something for him towards the end of the race, then Gabriele could very easily respond with something that he was also keeping for himself.
Definitely a possibility.
There goes Hille now past the lap car. He's really opening a gap now with Nilsson, who himself is also opening a gap with Bouchard.
Well, Bouchard had a bit of
causing a small traffic jam behind him. There's Juha Bos, and now Richard Coxon has joined the party.
I think Bouchard had a bit of a moment during this lap, and now Bors up the inside, and now really using the boost button and flying past.
Yep.
Oh, and Coxon!
Oh,
dearie me, that could have been very bad indeed, but they worked it out.
I'm amazed that never ended up in contact. That was a bit optimistic from Coxon there.
I can imagine Coxon giving his kingdom for some breaks. In any case, I mean, you was obviously fed up of the situation because Tim Hille, Anders Nilsson, I mean, almost everybody is getting past him, past Bouchard, and disappearing off into the horizon while he is getting stuck behind the car. So it was a matter of time until he lost patience and became more liberal with the push button.
Quite so. Unfortunately, Jon team has retired while all that was going on too. But that's one of those things. Let's look now. Let's jump on board again with this great onboard camera on the right side of the cockpit. Oh, and look at this, the speed differential. Wow. That's that extra Ferrari power and some extra boost pressure going for you. Oh no, he hit the inside curb and spins. And Bouchard has to go around outside. He keeps the engine going though. Nicely done, Richard. Nice recovery. But that's a very costly spin indeed, both for tires and for position and time-wise. Let's actually ride on board with him here and see what he sees as he turns into the hairpin. Car turns in just a bit sharper than he expected, and Bouchard with a great avoiding move too to not hit him. Wow, that was very close.
Well, at least Post was finally able to consolidate this. He went off and he's now trying to pass Dave Miller, just a lap car, going for Anders Nilsson, trying not to lose the train with him. In the front, meanwhile, everything is the same. Hill is in third, Brian Janik is in second, carefully watching Gabriele Del Piccolo, and like I said, we should be looking at what happens towards the end of the race between these two, because these are very calculating drivers, and I think they are pacing themselves a lot. So once the hostilities break out towards the end of the race, it's going to be fun to see what's going to happen here.
Microphone activated.
And unfortunately, I noticed there, Mike Olsen has unfortunately retired from the race. So the second Haas, I think he was driving, is unfortunately out of this race, but Bouchard still going strong in the 6th. And Yannick actually closing in on this lap, if only by a few tenths, but this is starting to get a little bit closer at the very front of the field. And a lap car to contend with too for the leading duo, as Rapinski very sportingly gets way out of the way in the final turn. Nicely done.
And to put things into perspective, we're only 20 laps into an 82 race. Just a quarter of the race.
That is quite remarkable.
Even so, Yannick seems to think that his moment has come already, that his pace is enough to merit being there on the lead and opening a gap with Del Piccolo, and he's attacking. Probably he's just basically trying to see what happens if he pushes Del Piccolo a bit. If Del Piccolo has some right rhythm and is able to undertake his attack, and that seems to be the case, because look at what Del Piccolo immediately did.
Well, Statham, Yannick actually made a slight mistake there, ran a little bit wide in that turn, and that's why he lost a bit of that time. But as you say, probably Del Piccolo trying to answer back as well as he can.
This is basically a kind of talk without words between drivers, you know. Brian Janik was pushing Del Piccolo, like saying, let me know what you can do. And in this case, what happened was that Brian Janik was pushing so much that he made a small error. And this is also something that Del Piccolo noticed. I mean, Janik suddenly pushes me, and then all of a sudden he's behind, so he made an error. And that indicates to Del Piccolo that the pace they both are going right now is a bit too much for Brian Janik. I mean, he's on the limit. So, like I say, it's very interesting to see that non-verbal talk between the drivers.
Definitely so, and very, very impressive either way to see Yannick really pushing the envelope and really going well.
Yeah, he got nearly sideways through that very quick corner. That's some really skillful driving there at the limit.
Definitely so, and likewise I'd say Tim Helle in the Lotus flying the colors for Yon Player Special and doing it well in third. Well ahead of the drivers behind, 18 seconds, but also quite a bit behind the leaders at about, I'd say, 11-12 seconds.
I think one thing where you can see that difference between what Del Piccolo and Janik are doing, look at Del Piccolo closely, and you will see that he's basically leaving himself some room. He's not really climbing up on the curbs. He's about 1 feet from many of the lines that are marking the corners, whereas Brian Janik is absolutely on the limit. He's climbing on the pianos. He's really, really going very much using all the track space that he has to his avail. Not so much now that he's again behind Del Piccolo, but when he was catching up, he was absolutely on the limit. Look at how much the car is moving around, whereas the Benetton for Del Piccolo is a really steady car.
It's definitely true, and I'd say the Benetton has a slight advantage in the straight line too.
Now look at Del Piccolo here. I mean, he was like 1 foot away from the curve when he entered the corner, whereas Brian Janik was absolutely with the left wheels on the curve. Trying to gain some more angle, some more leverage into the corner here. Del Piccolo is really relaxed in that driving. Look at that. I mean, when he enters the corner, he's not so much on the outside as Brian Janik. He's not forcing the tire so much, he's just letting the car roll through the corner. So he seems to be really happy with the car and the setup. I'm not saying that Brian Janik is not happy, but he's really struggling much more to keep on that same pace that Del Piccolo is effortlessly doing.
Definitely so, unfortunately for I think that was Nascimento indeed. He had a bit of a moment letting the leaders pass, but that also means Yannick is now right up behind Del Piccolo, although in a section where it's very difficult to pass.
Yeah, Del Piccolo is now making his car wide, using all the track that he had not been using before. And if you notice, there have been some really bad movements of his car when he was going up the curves. So it's no wonder that to go quick he's avoiding the curves like hell, because it seems that his car is much stiffer than Brian Janik's and is not able to climb on the curves so much, which is interesting, because if towards the end of the race everything comes to really getting on the absolute limit, it's going to be interesting, because I think that the Piccolo setup is very quick for this steady pace, but doesn't leave him any room to really push the car up on the curbs and what Brian Janik is basically doing, get that flexibility to really push the car much more in these city tracks.
Right, so unfortunately Dave Miller into the pits for some repairs in the Sark Speed car and some new tires, so with a bit of luck he'll be able to make it to the end from here, even with that pit stop. But, well, you say keeping off keeping away from the curbing, but right now it almost looks like Del Piccolo is now the one running a bit closer to the curbing, so they seem to be differentiating that, as it looks like unfortunately Dave Miller has decided to retire the car entirely here.
Yeah, but even so, look, and you will see that not more than half the wheel of Del Piccolo's car is over the limit of the curb, whereas Brian Jani can go full over the curb.
Quite.
Yeah, I was going to say I've been watching the same, and I think it could be Yannick closed right up on the braking. But I was going to say I think it might just be down to the way the cars are set up as well. They might have the stuff like right height raised a little bit to try and attack the curbs more, or maybe have the damper set up to take some of the curbs. But yeah, I definitely noticed that Gabriele has been starting to take a lot more curb as well. But I'm surprised that Gabriele, on the other hand, has not pulled away. It seems to be he did pull away from Janik, but Janik just managed to close that gap back down. So maybe Gabriele is looking after his tyres or struggling a little bit.
Yeah, Gabriele is really pacing himself, and you can see that also in the lap times. He's basically unfazed, absolutely unfazed by having Brian Janik behind him. Brian is playing all the tricks, all the mind games that he can, but Gabriele is absolutely, I mean, this is very funny to say from someone who is an Italian, so the archetypal, theoretically hot-tempered guy. But no, that's not the case. I mean, look at Gabriele. He's absolutely ice cold in his driving. I mean, when I look at him, I would think of a slot car. He's absolutely on rails, absolutely controlling. I've been watching him over several laps, and he's been using the exact same entry points, apex, and all that. He has absolutely everything under control, and he's driving really steadily. So I think from his point of view, he has a good car, he has a good setup, he's driving steadily, and from his point of view, it's Brian Janik's job to try to do something to actually overtake him. And Brian Janik is, I mean, he has been trying in the previous laps, as we have seen, to climb up the walls, to try to put pressure on Gabriele by being very close behind on all of that, and absolutely no reaction on the other way. So Brian Janik really now needs to find something else that he can do towards the end of the race, because if he's saving fuel, if he thinks that he can be more liberal towards the end of the race with that fuel knob, then he knows that Gabriele is also in the same situation, because they also have the same engine. Even if the BMW in the Benetton is of course the factory, so to speak, one. But in this track, I don't think that the difference of 15 or 20 horsepower is going to be that big, because it's more of a limitation in terms of traction than in terms of peak power.
Well, right now looks like Del Piccolo has pulled away a little bit though. I don't know. I know what I would choose in terms of setup though for this kind of track. I'd probably lean more towards what Yannick is using, but Ryan, I believe you've done some testing. Which setup would you say is likely to be the more comfortable one to run here? The slightly softer and more curb liberal setup, or the what seems to be a slightly more stiffer and more keep between the curbing setup that Del Piccolo is running?
I mean, I think it depends on your driving style, and I think for me, from my experience of setting up open wheel cars or cars in general, I prefer to go for a softer setup, just because I feel more comfortable, and I find anyway it makes the car a lot more stable. Yeah, you might be slower in a way, but I find as long as you're comfortable, it seems to be the better way to go. But I think it's just one of those things. It's each driver is different.
Yeah, I think absolutely spot on, Ryan, because it's a matter of driving style. If you're one of those hard chargers that you really need to make the difference by going wild towards the end of the race, or in a situation where you are going to overtake them, you want a softer car. Absolutely, because you want that compliance of being able to climb up the curbs and do whatever is needed.
Ooh.
Whoa! Complicated moment for the leader here.
Ooh,
That was Oliver Team, I think.
Yeah.
The AGS.
Oscar team.
Oscar Team. Pardon me.
Oh, I had to hold my breath there.
So as I was saying, if you're one of those drivers that has the ability to control the car on the limit and all that, and you want to extract the maximum of it in a complicated situation, then yeah, absolutely, by all means, go by the softest setup that gives you the room to climb up the curve, the walls, and whatever is needed. And if you're one of those precise drivers where regularity is your biggest bet, then you're going for something more tight, something that is more custom tailored to the track, and that gives you that ability to go quicker as long as you're not going wild. And I think this is a very interesting thing that we're seeing here at the top between Brian Janik and Del Piccolo, because they seem to be those types of drivers, and they seem to have set up the car respectively like that.
Definitely so. Looks like Nilsson has dropped a couple of positions now. Coxon passed him, and so is Juha Boos. So I wonder if Nilsson is having to save a bit of fuel at the moment. Bouchard down to 7th, with Coxon going past, but still within striking distance. But he too, by the sounds of things, are saving a bit of fuel now.
He's fine there because there's bound to be retirements towards the end of the race. So if you're 7, you're really there to fish the points that someone lets go.
Definitely so. Looks like Chacon is on a recovery drive too, up into 12th, and not too far behind his countryman Alan Santo in front of him in the arrows. So bit of a fight on incoming there. Lewis Stevens 13th for Sella, Alberto Quino 14th for the Minardi team, Rodrigo Nascimento 15th with Francisco Amaral in 16th, and Oscar Team, the final car running at the moment, in 17th for the AGS Charo sponsored entry. And apologies to all the other drivers doing a fantastic job, but currently the most interesting bit is the battle at the front, so I will occasionally try to go down the field to update everyone on where their favorite drivers are. It'll be interesting to see too, now that we're within probably 10 laps of possible pit stops, whether Yannick or Del Piccolo decides to pit in this race.
And I'm going to say something here. I've been watching for a good lap what Del Piccolo and Brian Janik are doing from the cockpit view. And I should say that Brian Janik is using about 200 or 300 RPMs less than Del Piccolo, even if they are on the same pace. So that seems to me that it's indicating that he's probably on a bit of a higher boost, but also short shifting the car. He seems to be extracting the best compromise from the car like that, but that could also help a lot, having a bit that extra boost towards the end of the race.
Definitely so, especially if you're used to the kind of delivery it gives you.
BMW engines, I mean, 4 pods are not the easiest here because they are powerful, but they are more temperamental.
It's a bit like nothing, and then you get to a certain rev range, everything happens, and a second later you need to change gear. A bit like the brakes on most Scania trucks. about 1.9 decimeters when nothing happens, and then 1 centimeter where everything happens, the brakes lock, and you go off the road.
I was thinking of something completely different. There was an episode of Top Gear when James May and Jeremy Clarkson were testing out communist cars, and they said the brake. I think it was Clarkson that said that the brakes felt like they felt like cheese or something like that, which was quite funny.
In which they worked once and then they were useless.
Yeah,
I'd imagine. But hopefully our drivers' brakes will hold up for this race. This track is very taxing on the brakes, and talking about taxing, there's some pretty heavy traffic up ahead now. So let's see. Yannick with an opportunity maybe to sneak down the inside, not able to do it. One slightly held up behind, I think that was Nascimento.
Yeah, Nascimento basically moved out, and then when accelerating out of the corner, he got a bit of forward steer and came closer to Gianni, but still controlled well the situation. Rocha nearly hitting his own teammate, but he was absolutely surprised because they were all maneuvering behind Chacon. That's a lap car there, so they were trying to get past. Yannick not really willing to concede any advantage to Del Piccolo here, because even if he's able to catch up, we have seen that already. Even if he's able to catch up later, if he loses some ground, I would guess that costs him too much fuel, so he doesn't want to really lose the distance between him and Del Piccolo.
Well, right now it looks like he's fairly happy to keep it at around the second and a half mark, give or take. But it's also a case of, I think, by the looks of things, he wants to be close enough to use the slipstream down this back straight, because he really closes up with that lower body height of the BRM, which was, if I'm not misremembering, the lowest F1 car up to that date that had been built. Which obviously saw some advantages, but some pretty hefty disadvantages as well. Wow, that was a well executed first chicane, and right up underneath Del Piccolo's rear wing. But I wonder too if he's sitting there and saving a lot more fuel than Del Piccolo is, and that's why he hasn't actually made a full crack of it yet. That, as you say, he's just waiting for the final, say, 10 laps, and then he'll actually go for it.
I think what's going on is at the beginning of the race, Brian was pushing Del Piccolo and trying to see if he made an error or how quick he could go and that. And then once he realized...
Oh, as you say that though, he's having a crack down the straight, trying to go the long way round at the hairpin. I think he still has... I think him... Oh, just barely losing out to overlap.
I believe this was not really an attempt to overtake, but it was that Yannick found himself all of a sudden that Del Piccolo was not going so quick in the straight, and then having the momentum, he basically tried to storm through, but it was not intentional on his part to really go by. So, like I was saying, I think what's going on is that Yannick was trying to, at the beginning of the race, he was feeling his way. He was trying to push Del Piccolo and see what happened, and then he saw what kind of rhythm or steady rhythm Del Piccolo can pick, and he probably realized that it would not make sense to overtake him fast and furious style, only to have to lower the boost and let him catch up. Instead, probably he thinks that the sensible thing to do here is to stay behind Del Piccolo, control the fuel situation, and then, towards the end of the race, make his charge. Oops, look at what happened when Del Piccolo went over one curb.
Oh dear. Well, that's Yannick up into the lead, and let's see what happens now, because this could be very interesting. Oh, look at that, he pulls a huge distance too, with a much better run down onto the back straight. So that's a second and a half now in his advantage.
So a hot-headed driver here, in the place of Del Piccolo, would probably just want his position back, because he was used to that, he was comfortably leading and all that. But now Del Piccolo might do one of two things. Either watch a bit what Brian Yannick is up to, let him waste more fuel and that, or teach him a lesson and let him know that his quest is hopeless and that he is going to be much faster no matter what.
Well, currently Yannick is pulling away. I was going to say we might see Yannick struggle a tiny bit because he's been running so many laps in the dirty air behind Del Piccolo, but right now he's pulled out a 2-second advantage, so he pulled another half second in the final sector.
Yeah, but we're carrying on from Del Piccolo's mistake. So let's give them 1 or 2 more laps and see what happens. Remember what happened at the beginning of the race with Del Piccolo and Buchard? Even if the difference was much bigger between cars, Del Piccolo took it really calmly until he decided that it was a moment to overtake Buchard.
Del Piccolo running wide again though, losing even more time. So definitely out of his groove. That's roughly 4 seconds the difference now, I reckon.
I'm thinking that this stiffer setup that Del Piccolo is using, meant to be there in the lead or doing a very fun driving, is now taking a toll on the tires. Probably Del Piccolo is going for 1 pit stop, and it's now hurting him that he has that stiff setup, because stiff setups, as we know, put more stress on the tires, so this could well be what is going on.
Definitely a possibility. And I mean, especially in that first chicane, we can really see Yannick pulling a lot of time in what is a couple of the quickest corners on the track.
Still, Brian Janik is not any quicker than in the previous laps, mind you. I mean, he did 123.5, 123.72 in the lap that he passed Del Piccolo, and 123.71 in this lap, so nearly the same lap times all around. So it seems to be Del Piccolo who is losing more, and like I said, probably also due to the incidents and the tires. Yeah, indeed. I mean, he was doing 123.6 when Brian overtook him, and the last 2 laps have been 125.4, 125 dead. So yeah, I think that the tires in Del Piccolo's cars are giving up the ghost.
Oh,
we're on lap
possibly.
37, so we're close to the pit stops.
Well, it'll be interesting to see. Hi, Lucy. Because now Del Piccolo had a clean lap. It looks like he's closed up a little bit again. 23.7, I think, for Yannick. And I believe my cat wants some food, so I'll leave the camera on Yannick at the moment, and I'll be right back. I'll leave it up to you guys to keep everyone updated for a couple of minutes.
Okay.
So 1.5 seconds now, it seems that Del Piccolo, look at that, I mean, he's coming from behind, he's catching up quickly. So like I said, he was going to show Brian Janik that he won't be shaken off so quickly, so easily. I mean, probably the funniest part of this, and it's something that you will need to do sim racing or real racing to appreciate it, is the mind games that are going on here. When you're a spectator, you've been on races, Ryan, I think you will agree with me if you are also a spectator in races and you've been to racetracks and all that. I mean, it's nice to see all the action in terms of the smell, the sound, all that. You see the cars going quickly around, but you really learn to appreciate this through sim racing when you see the mind games that are played here.
Yeah, absolutely. I think Janik, he's fallen back a little bit, but I think it's like you say, he might just be playing mind games at the moment and letting Janik think that he's struggling, and then towards the end of the race he might. We're out going on lap 39, so it's still a long way to go, but I think Del Piccolo realises it, and maybe just hanging back, playing mind games, and maybe trying to trick Brian into thinking that he's struggling and just letting him go a little bit, but they've got a lap car in front of them, so maybe Gabriele might use that opportunity to close the gap back down.
I remember when I got into sim racing, I've been watching a lot of races earlier in my life, and that's because I love motorsports. And I think it was all about that Fast and Furious action and that. But when I first bought some books about racing, about real racing written by real racers, they said in one point, one sentence that it really struck me, and they said, "Look, for a driver, ability is a given. I mean, you're not here if you don't have the ability. So he who wins is the mentally strongest." And I've seen that repeated many times by Dale Earnhardt, by Niki Lauda, and by all these guys. I mean, ability is a given. You either have the ability or you simply are not here. But what makes the difference between the guys who have the ability is the mental strength.
Yeah, absolutely. I found in long races like this that sometimes if someone's battling you and they've been behind you for quite some time, it can play with your mind a little bit. But you've just got to excuse me, try and keep your composure, just keep cool, and just try and keep hitting your marks and not let the car behind you try and intimidate you.
It's funny because it's something that crosses over to many sports. I haven't done in my life motor racing, but I did some amateur boxing. And one of the things that was really scary was when you were boxing with someone and you hit him really hard, and he basically just goes and face it and keeps hitting you. That's the moment where you say, "Oh my goodness, I'm into trouble." So it's about the same here. I mean, when you do your utmost, you nearly crash on a corner. You're absolutely doing everything you can, and you're going to say, "Oh, look, I'm showing you off. I'm going to tell you how much quicker I am," and you're going to basically bow away. And no, the other guy goes unfazed or even goes quicker. That's the moment when you realize, man, I'm in trouble.
Yeah, absolutely. And looks like Brian has just closed, stretched the gap a little bit, ever so slightly, but still, Gabriele, thinking about it and just looking at him right now, he's closing that gap back down now. So maybe Brian rather is starting to struggle now, or maybe just deciding to look after his tyres. But I think if Gabriele gets a slipstream and he gets a chance, he'll try and make a move to retake the lead.
That's the interesting thing. I mean, I believe that Gabriele has enough pace up his sleeve to have caught up with Brian Janik in like nothing, in one lap. But it took him like 5 or 6 laps, and I think that is very telling of him having a very controlled race. He knows very well what he's doing. He knows that he doesn't really need to hurry up to catch up with Brian Janik. And that's what is interesting. I don't think he was pushing like mad, and it took him so long to come here and catch up with Brian Janik again. No, I don't think that's the case. I think he was really controlling it and saying, "Nah, I'm not going to overdrive my tires. I'm going to keep up my pace, and then sooner or later I'll be behind him because we have plenty of race ahead." And the plan has worked out. We saw him at the beginning when he was like frustrated because he had been behind lap cars. When I said that he had been clocking 2 laps that were very slow, he went over the curbs. He made 2 mistakes, so to speak. And that's when he immediately settled. He said, "No, that's not my way. I'm not going over the curbs. I'm just basically going to do my thing." And his thing brought him back behind Brian Janik.
Welcome back.
Did you catch the cat?
She got some evening food and she was very happy for it, so all good.
Cats. They don't have any sense of opportunity.
No, indeed.
Free spirits.
Definitely so. Looks like it's more or less status quo in the lower placed positions as well.
Yeah, it's also the case. Anderson is still chasing Juha Boss. Not close behind, but in striking distance, so to speak. And in the front, well, Tim Hill is in the pits now. Okay, he is one of the leaders doing a pit stop. see what kind of tire choice is he making. It seems to be a really long pit stop, and it's soft for him all around.
I think Coxon has probably has been in at some point as well. Possibly. Well, maybe not, because now he actually goes past while Hill is still in the pits.
Yeah, I think he's doing some repairs. He forgot probably to disable the repairs. He's moving now. Fourth position for him, but that was a very long pit stop.
Definitely so. That's a bit costly.
Ah, Yannick is signaling pits now. Interesting.
Wow.
So we're in lap 43, which is okay, makes sense. There goes Brian Yannick. Let's have a look at his tires. This is going to be important. Okay, softs for him. Softs at the front and at the rear. At least that seems to indicate that he has a well-balanced car. He doesn't need to resort to stiffer tires at the front or whatever tricks to make it work. And well, a car that is really on the edge, on the limit, because with the same tires front and rear, I believe that this means that he's happy with the balance, but he's really on the edge. And we will see if Gabriel Piccolo is going to stop.
And it would seem the pit stop takes about 22 seconds, so that'll be roughly the margin.
Signaling pits. Looking forward to see what kind of lap times Del Piccolo is doing when he's in clean air. So far he was even quicker than the previous lap, but not the quickest he has been. He did 1:22.6 in this previous lap. I'm waiting now to see him go past the start finish line. It should be in a moment. See if he's improving or not. And what this is telling us.
And here he goes.
No, he's not improving. Could be traffic. Maybe he leaves himself one more lap, depending on whether he's feeling or not that the tires are okay.
Oh, he's definitely trying, that's for sure.
So Yannick's outlap was not really that great, 1:25, which means he has lost a further 3 seconds to Del Piccolo in this last lap. And he's stuck in traffic, I think.
Ooh. Yes, now he's slightly stuck in traffic. Again, one of those places where it can be very tricky to get out of the way, so that's just one of those things.
Yeah, but this is not going to help him at all, because if Del Piccolo goes into the pits and has a clean pit stop, he would come out in front. I don't know if Brian is going to crank up the boost or simply go with business as usual. But I'm looking forward to see what the lap times bring. I find it interesting that when he's trying to go for the hot laps now, without any car in front, he's not using the curbs anywhere as much as he was doing. So it seems to me that the soft suspension setup and the going for the curbs is something that he's using to put pressure on the car in front and to give him some leeway, but he knows that the clean lap is not bad. Okay, 1:24. Obviously this was under traffic, so he's improving. But still, ways to go. Let's see what Del Piccolo does, because so far he should be very happy to have gained so much ground. And indeed, next lap for Del Piccolo was 1:22.4, which is nearly as quick as he has ever gone.
That's a nearly full 2 seconds quicker than Yannick that lap as well.
And I think, and I could be wrong, this could indicate that he's sprinting to use this to overtake Brian Yannick in the pits. And he's now stuck behind traffic, and if he wants to make a pit stop, Well, it could be this lap. This lap or the next should be enough to bring him forward. Not this lap, he's not going in. But if he's not going to have a pit stop in this race, and it's becoming late because it's lap 47 now for him, if he's not going to make any pit stop, he probably wants to open a bit of a gap because later in the race he's going to suffer a lot from Brian Janik. I don't know if I was him, I think, knowing that he's quicker than Janik, why risk it towards the end of the race? I mean, I would get fresh tires now that we are so even, or I can even allow myself to pit and not lose my position or come out very close to Brian, instead of going to the risk of forcing these tires for the whole race and then Brian catching up with me towards the end of the race with his newer tires. I'm not sure. Ryan, what do you think in this situation?
Sorry, what was it? What was the question? I had to take my headset off because I had to sneeze. Sorry.
No problem. I was saying that Del Piccolo is now speeding up a bit, and it could be that he's trying to give him some room to make a pit stop and come out in front of Brian Janik. But look, he's the leader now. He has the room for having a pit stop and either coming out right in front of Brian Janik or coming out right with him. But Brian Janik has done his pit stop and he's on fresh tires. He has fresh tires for the rest of the race. Del Piccolo is going very quick. But if he doesn't make the pit stop now, he will be risking it towards the end of the race. And I think it's a hard call because Del Piccolo knows he's going very quick now. He's comfortable with his pace, clearly, but he's risking it. So what would you do in this situation? Do you think you would mimic what Brian Janik did? Get fresh tires and dice towards the end of the race, or try to build up the gap and gamble it on your tires holding up?
That's a tough question. I think it's a difficult situation or a difficult thing to think about. I think if you're Gabriele, at the moment it looks like he's trying to go as quick as possible and stay out as long as possible. So, but like you said, Janet's got fresh tires, so I don't know what I would do. I think if I was Gabriele, I would maybe, if you're pulling away, try and stretch that gap as much as possible. And if he does decide to pit, then just basically try and make sure you don't lose too much time in the pit stop. And then after you make your pit stop, just basically try and go as quick as possible to close that gap back down to Janik. But at the moment, it's a difficult thing to do. I think Gabriele at the moment, if he's staying out, what we on coming to the end of lap 48, I think if he doesn't pit by, I'm guessing, lap 60, I think he'll try and go do this whole race without stopping.
Well, while we talk, he has clocked another lap. That's lap 49. He has been very steady, 122.9 in the last lap. So it would seem to be that he's not interested in doing a pit stop. But like I said, that's a big gamble. I mean, if you are out in the lead and really with a big gap, well, you can do whatever you want. But in this situation where it was so tight between him and Brian, sorry, Jonathan, you were about to say something.
Brian just did a 21.7 on that lap they just completed.
It's no wonder. It's no wonder because he's on fresh tires. So this is going to be a tough call for Del Piccolo because every lap that passes by, Janik is going quick and the gap diminishes. So if Del Piccolo is willing to keep towards the end of the race these tires, every lap that he does is going to kill more and more the ability of him to mend his decision, to basically say, no, I was wrong and I should go for tires to fend off Brian. So there he goes for another lap. Let's see what happens now because this one wasn't cleaner. It was a bit better, but not what Brian did. 122.6. So if he's going in for tires, he should be doing it quickly. Because like I said, later it could be really too late. Personally, as his race engineer, I would have advised Del Piccolo to change tires because he looked to have the race control. He looked to really be quicker than Brian Janik if needed be. But now, if he's gambling it on these tires, we'll see what happens.
Quite so, and I notice also a bit further down the field in 5th and 6th, there's a bit of a fight going on between Juha Boos and Anders Nilsson. I suppose you could say a somewhat traditional McLaren versus Ferrari battle. Although for me that would be late 90s for the McLaren versus Ferrari situation, but I believe that's gone on further back in time as well.
Even 76, huh?
Yeah, I was going to say, I think it even went as far back as the mid to late 70s. When Nicky Lauda and James Hunt were racing for Ferrari and McLaren, and that 1976 season, I was actually watching a review of that, and if you haven't watched the movie, I highly recommend watching Russ, because it's not all of it's accurate, but it gives a good representation of the rivalry they had.
Okay, so it's official. It's a full second that Brian Janik is lapping now quicker than Del Piccolo at the current moment. So Del Piccolo is very steady, 122.6, 122.7, very steady on that situation, but Brian Janik is a full second quicker on these fresh tires. Let's see what happens towards the end of the race, but like I said, if I was Del Piccolo, I would pit sooner than the sooner the better.
Quite so, because if he pits
takes
very
him
much
seconds
later,
now,
he'll
the
lose.
difference, by the way.
Ooh, I think then he would lose track position if he pits now.
He would, but he would have a chance of fighting it towards the end of the race. But look, right now as we are speaking, the distance has decreased to 17.4.
Oof.
Brian Janik is catching up very quickly, and that means the later that Gabriele pits, the less chances he will have of coming back, because Brian Janik is obviously going much quicker.
And unfortunately it looks like Lewis Stevens has retired in the last few laps.
Coxon is up in third.
He is indeed, with a couple of I think Coxon Nielsen has pitted. I don't think Coxon has. Tim Hiller pitted too, so that's...
Nilsson making a move there. I don't think he tried to overtake, because they had been steadily all the time in the straight at the same speed. He was just showing to Juha Boos, or probably also trying to feel if he had a different braking point than Juha, because that's not something you want to learn about if you're directly behind the car in front.
Oh, that's very much true.
So if you move to the, so to explain it to people who are not used to racing, when they are both one behind the other in the main straight, if Nilsson moves out, as if he was going to overtake, what Juha Boos is going to do is more or less late braking. Not as much late braking as if he really feels that there is an overtaking move on the way, but Juha is certainly not going to make it easy. And what this makes is indicate Anders Nilsson what the braking point for Juha Boos is, which he can use to gauge it later when he's trying to make a pass.
That's why you often see drivers sitting behind their opponents for up towards 5-6 laps, and then they make the decision of what they want to do and where they want to do it.
So
when here comes Nilsson up the inside. Now he's actually going for it down the back straight. Ooh, but Boos really late on brakes, and Nilsson too. Oh!
Just a slight bit of rubbing.
But Robin's racing and Nilsson is through. A very neat little move.
Piccolo has taken notice of what's going on behind him and has sped up. But even if he made a sizable improvement, it went down to 122.2. That's a full 0.7 of a second quicker than what he was doing. So like I said, a sizable improvement. But Janik is, even if he has basically cooled down a bit, He did 1:22.4. So that means he's gaining about 0.3 of a second right now in this lap. And we will see what happens when the fuel gets lower and the cars get lighter.
The 2.1 that time. So
I can also imagine that the softer car here, when the fuel is getting lower, will rise up much more and therefore give you less downforce. Whereas in the case of Del Piccolo, that lower right height combined with a stiffer suspension to keep up with it will mean that he doesn't lose as much grip from the underbody.
Could very well be the case. Question is, because what we saw earlier was Yannick sparking a lot towards the end of the back straight, but doesn't look to be quite as much.
Okay, 14 seconds now the gap, so it seems that Brian is back to his own ways, 122.1, whereas in the case of Del Piccolo, that was 125. Either an error, traffic or whatever, but in this lap he has taken a big hit.
That's unfortunate for him, but positive for us. We might get some good action. Ooh! 21.6 for Brian Yannick, so nearly as quick as he's gone so far in this race. Only a few hundredths off.
Yeah, I think he basically smelled the blood in the water. Thought that maybe Del Piccolo had suffered some kind of problem because of that big difference. It was nearly 3 seconds in a strike. So he sped up immediately to use the opportunity.
Could easily be the case.
13.4 seconds. And it's clear that Del Piccolo is not going to make any pit stop here. So he's going to bet everything on his tires being good enough towards the end of the race. But I think that Brian's tires are going to, at the very least, equal those lap times towards the end of the race, but before that, they are going to put him right behind Del Piccolo.
Definitely so, and Yannick quite aggressive in the lapping here, but was able to make it work quite well, so I don't think he will have gone too much slower on this lap. 22.2.
him, I think the one that comes now is the only curb that he is touching. But if you look at his laps, they are very clean. He's using, look at that, I mean, he's on the white line, absolutely using up till the latest inch of tarmac available in the track, very precise driving. That's the mark of a really, really top driver. Look at that. I mean, he hit the apex barely, what was that, 1 centimeter off the curb, and came out barely half a centimeter off the curb. So very good driving here, but look at that. He's not climbing up the curbs, even if he has less fuel now. That seems to indicate that these cars are clearly quicker when they are nicely set in the track and not going up, climbing up the walls. But we know that Brian has the leeway to do so when he needs it. It's going to be interesting if we are going to see any kind of wild passing maneuver towards the end of the race. Steady distance at 13.5 right now. Del Piccolo 121.7. Still on the same tires, so it seems to indicate that he had indeed something up his sleeve.
And a 21.6 again for Yannick, so...
Yeah, that was Yannick's reply to that. Like we said many times, mind games here, playing between both of them. They are very much aware of what is going on behind or in front, respectively.
Well, this could easily go either way, really. And I mean, we also have to take into account the brakes and the fuel and the engines in this whole equation.
We're in lap 57, and I would like to highlight for all our viewers, even if most of them know it, how complicated it is to do these many laps here, going like that, 1 centimeter of the curb every time,
Microphone muted.
changing gears, and well, doing all that is needed to keep these 1,000 horsepower monsters on the track. It's absolutely amazing the skills that this has had. Del Piccolo now coming to lap Bouchard. Well, usually nobody wants to be lapped, but in this case,
Microphone
that's about
activated.
the thing that tells you, oh, I've got one more lap of fuel.
Partly that, and Yannick with an absolute stonker of a lap. A 21 flat on that previous lap.
Yeah, Del Piccolo is taking it easy behind Bouchard. Of course, it would be nonsense for him to risk anything here, but he's now cracking up the boost and making his move. He knows that waiting behind Bouchard on that set of turns cost him some time, but still so he's not risking it. There's a sizable gap still with Prix and Yannick, but we will see what happens towards the end of the race. 11 seconds now. So Del Piccolo is really managing this as if it was the savings of his life.
Unfortunately, Alberto Equino has retired in the last few laps here. Unfortunately, looks like I'm not going to be able to get that on the replay, but unfortunately that's both Minardi's out of this final round. Owen Chacon into the pits for a late new set of tires. Looks like Coxon is currently fairly safe in a third, keeping a 13-second gap to Hiller still.
So the gap is now 11.1 seconds, and we've got still 23 laps to go.
So could very well be enough time for things to get even closer and
Yeah,
to change still.
It would, but
a yellow flag outstanding here. Looks like a car off. That's Oliver Thiem with a spin in the AGS. At between, I believe that's turn 6 and 7. Oh, nicely done. Very well aware of what's around him, was Oscar there, and stay out of the way of all the faster cars coming past.
so in the last lap, Brian was even a bit slower than Del Piccolo. Oh, whoa! The Oscar team there crossed in the middle of the track. The leader just avoided him, but he took some debris on the wheels. I just hope it doesn't cause any puncture.
Oh, hopefully it'll be safe and sound.
So Del Piccolo coming now to Juhapos. The distance is 10.7. So it's obviously steadily diminishing, and Del Piccolo is managing that.
It looks like Del Piccolo will get a fairly well-timed lapping in here on Bose, unless Bose was a lot quicker through the turn leading on to the back straight, and it looks like he was, because Del Piccolo not close enough to demand the opportunity to lap him. So, oh no, Brian Yannick has gone off! No! I cannot believe it! Oh!
That's a shame. What happened there?
Let's see, he
Wow.
puts a lap on. That looked very strange indeed. I wonder if...
He hit the curb. That unsettled him. He went against the curb in front, and that one put him airborne. And when the car is airborne, you have absolutely nothing you can do, because nothing responds to your inputs. Steering the tires, anything. So that was it. It's a shame.
That's such rotten luck.
Yep. He was doing such a great race so far.
Well, that's unfortunately one of those things.
El Del Piccolo has immediately slowed down 0.3 of a second.
Well, understandably so. He has over a minute gap to the car behind. So now there's no need to push the car at all. He can just try to take it easy and secure what I believe would be second in the championship. I see now also pits for new tires. Taking the opportunity to secure it up.
Goes to the pits.
Yeah, taking the opportunity for some new tires, I believe, just to secure up his position.
Now this is interesting that he did not do that while he was being chased by Brian Yannick, and he does it now to just like, I don't know, secure the situation. If he was going to do a pit stop, then why not do it before? So let me have a look at that. That's soft tires for him.
And Brian in the stream chat.
Hards in the rear and softs in the front. Quite interesting.
Wow. Brian in the stream chat letting us know that he got slightly distracted from passing Yules, just enough to put him slightly off his trajectory, and in his words, at least he's not in a coma, so very, very unfortunate for you, Brian, but a great drive up until that point.
Racing.
Oh, certainly yes. Considering some of the crashes we've seen in the last few years here in sim racing, it's very fortunate indeed it's sim racing. We would be a few drivers shorter, I believe, had it not been.
I think we would be seeing single digits in the starts if we had real damage here on the vehicle. I mean, I know I would have died several times already.
Probably would have too, and the battle now is for second and third between Coxon and Hiller.
It is, yes, barely 1 second apart. Not even that, because there's clashing action there between Lotus and Ferrari. Seems that Hiller has recovered very well from his early woes.
Well, that, and he has newer tires than what Coxon has on his Ferrari, so...
Although, I don't know, I think Coxon hit at some point. Let me check that.
Well, if he pitted, he definitely pitted earlier than what Hiller did.
No, looking at the lap times, I don't see anything odd here. So I don't think he has pit yet. No.
Well, it'll be very interesting to see if he can keep Hill in
Hill,
behind. Oh dear, oh dear, oh dear. Oh no, is there some kind of trouble for Coxon? Oh no, no engine in that car. Has the Ferrari engine given up the ghost?
Yeah, I was about to say I was watching him for quite some time, and it looked. I just watched him, and it looked like his engine just blew up.
So the engine gave up the ghost.
So yeah, Ferrari reliability not again just giving up.
That's a Ferrari turbo of the 80s for you.
That's true.
Definitely so. That's a very sad sight, but one of those things. At least he gave it a red hot go, and that means his teammate is now up into third. So still a chance for Prancing Horses to pick up one final podium in this championship. With Johan Boos, I believe about 7-8 seconds behind the Ferrari man at the moment. With Just Bouchard with this attrition, for his own benefit, I suppose, soon to be fifth, which I reckon he'll be quite happy with. And sixth will be in a few laps David Saber, so a nice drive for him as well. Chacon will be 7th with Schlapinski in 8th. Alan Santo in 9th with Rocha in 10th. Amaral will climb to 11th in a few laps with actually up to 11th. Oscar Team will climb up into 12th, soldiering on in that by the looks of things somewhat ill handling AGS, and I think he's still the final car running in this race. As unfortunately the second Osella has retired. Let's try to make this happen in as smooth a way as possible.
Channel switched. User left your channel. Channel switched.
As we are now joined in the broadcast booth by Richard Coxon. That's a heartbreaking way to end a race, isn't it?
Yeah. It weren't a good start from the beginning. Got collected on lap 1, so that damaged the car. But surprisingly, we still had pace in it. But yeah, for about 3-4 laps, I could tell something was wrong. It just weren't pulling the same, so we just playing the waiting game.
Did you take a pit stop?
Yes.
Okay, I missed that one because I was looking at the lap times and I was not sure if you had done so.
Lap 40, I actually had a sub 10-second pit stop, so.
Yeah, it's. I mean, there was a battle shaping up between you and Tim Hille, but it wasn't to be.
Yeah, I mean, he only started catching. Nothing against him because the engine was dying. I lost about 10 mile an hour on the straights. It just wasn't pulling. The turbo normally kicks in about 8.5, but it weren't kicking in till 10. So.
Oof. Well, that's unfortunate, but looking at the full championship, while difficult looking back after having retired from another mechanical issue, how would you say the championships have been, both from a personal standpoint, but of course also from an admin point of view?
Well, from an admin point of view, it's been brilliant. having full grids, a full season, is incredible. I don't think we've ever had this amount of success with a series. But from a driver's point of view, it's had its ups, its downs, but I've enjoyed it. And that's the main thing, we're all here just to enjoy ourselves.
Definitely
I
so.
think your test driving for the mod and for the mods next year and all that have been taking a toll on your performance. I don't think that you've been able to train and prepare as much for the races that you would have liked to ride.
Maybe, but I've been able to work well with Anders makes it easier since we can share things. But yeah, it has its toll, but I'm not going to say that's the reason. A lot of today, just them two at the front, Gabriella and Brian. I don't know what happened to Brian, but they were just in a class of their own. But yeah, but I'm looking forward to next year. We've got some good mods coming, so it should be fun.
Certainly looking
we're going to have
very
a lot
interesting.
of fun, and we're going to feel like many of those famous Formula One rejects. I mean, doing Formula 186 and then doing Kart 87.
Well, could be a far worse. I mean, the cars are brilliant, and many of the tracks are tracks we've raced before and loved. So, I mean, for me, the biggest draw for that championship is Meadowlands, especially from a broadcasting point of view, because that track always throws up something new whenever we've been there. Well,
it would have been nice to see as much drama here as was seen in the real-life championship, but it wasn't to be. Still, it's been a fun race here at Adelaide so far. And we'll see, because, well, up until the end, anything can happen, and it usually does.
Certainly so, especially with the brakes still being a question mark for all our drivers. I suppose finally, just a question for Richard: how were your brakes holding up? Were they still giving you the full bite, or were you starting to feel a bit of a bit of a fade in the performance of those?
We took extra precaution with the brakes, so ours was still okay. Maybe that cost us a bit of performance, but it's better to be safe than sorry.
Definitely so. Well, thank you very much for joining us and talking to us still during the race here, and really looking forward to what you can do next year, and looking forward to broadcast next year. It's looking like a absolutely stonking year.
It's my pleasure, and thank you for broadcasting.
Always good fun.
Well, if you want to see brake fade, wait for next year in Formula
1. True, very true.
User left your channel.
It's one of those times where I really hope I get to drive.
Okay.
Based on the limited times I've driven cars that has brake fade, it's gone fairly well. Minus the Porsche WM86, which we shall not talk about at Monza.
Yeah, I don't know if it was Hans Stuck or some of those drivers in the very early days, when they asked him about if he had suffered a lot of brake fade, and he more or less said something to the effect that he would probably have noticed it if he had had some brakes to start with.
Quite. Sort of the par for the course in the olden days. As long as it went fast in a straight line, to hell with everything else.
Yeah, exactly. Surviving at the end of the straight is the job of the driver, not of the engineer.
Quite. So the difference between Nilsson and Bos are remaining fairly static.
We
well,
still need to see if Anders Nilsson is able to catch up with him towards the end of the race with Juha Bos. That's only a 6-second gap. Juha's last lap was 1:22.3. Anders' last lap was 1:22.8, so it doesn't seem as if he's closing in.
Well, if he's doing so, it's by very small increments. Saber still in 6th, Chacon in 7th, Rojas still in 8th, with Santo still in 9th. Amaral still in 10th, with Schlapinski down into 11th after what I'd assume to be pit stops and maybe some repairs. Coxon, unfortunately, a retirement, with Oscar Team soon to be climbing up into 12th.
My goodness, what a weird situation between Amaral and Bos, as Amaral is trying to unlap himself. He missed the chicane, he hit Bos. That could have gone wrong easily. I mean, it's understandable that he wants to do his own race, but guys need to be careful with that.
It's definitely a precise craft, but that's unfortunately cost Bos around 5 seconds to Nilsson. Oh, and he hits the... Ooh, that's calling it close. He hit the curbing that... the inside curbing first, and then the outside curbing that took Yannick out of the race, and that could have ended very badly indeed for Bos. And Amaral again trying to lap himself.
I'm just wondering how much quicker he would be if he would be in front of Juha Bos, because, well, while in the straights and that, it seems that he's indeed quicker. He very quickly loses the momentum in the corner, so I'm not sure. I think Juha is not making it any harder for him. He's basically just cruising around.
Microphone muted.
And, well, I mean, I know that Juha is not exactly super absolutely safe in his position. No, look, wait a moment. Anders Nilsson is in front of him. What happened here? I must have missed something. Anders is now 3rd and Juha is 4th. So there must have been some kind of incident that we missed.
Microphone activated.
No, he was always in front after the most recent set of pit
Ah,
stops.
sorry. Yes, I was mistaken by that. No, but I mean, in the case of Juha, I'm not sure if he should actually be letting Amaral by if he's that much quicker.
Well,
but now it
Amaral
seems that
had a half spin, so he's now
he is gone.
back.
Yeah, so he's not risking anything at this point.
Oh, indeed. And Richard, what do you think? Will everyone's brakes hold up here, or do you think anyone has used too much brakes and put themselves in danger of losing them in the final 6 laps here?
I think Richard popped off, but I think, yeah, as we get close to the end of the race, I think everyone will probably just take it easy now and get to the finish, because I think they're probably thinking about brakes and maybe getting worried a little bit. But I think what Richard said about the brakes, being cautious, I think that was the right way to go, because on a street circuit, if you've got no brakes, it's not a scary proposition, or it's not a good proposition that you want around here.
No, indeed, and in that same vein, nowhere to go to be safe. as on as on normal road courses you have some kind of leeway with grassy sections, but here, as you say, with it being scary, there's walls everywhere and very close to the racing surface.
And with 7 laps to go, it seems a very dominating performance from Gabriele. This Benetton is really in good shape for this end of the season, and it's just a shame that he didn't get acquainted with the car before, and there was the unfortunate incident in the previous race, because it's evident that he can put up a fight for this season, for this championship. But we see. Maybe, I mean, the thing about racing is that the next year you always get the next chance.
Indeed. It's going to be, I would say, quite a different kind of racing year, especially in F1.
Yes, very much in F1, but in the case of the Indy cars, I think that everybody who has driven this season in Formula 1 here is going to have a better time, because it's the experience learned here is going to translate very well into Kart 87. I mean, the management of the car, of the tires, of the fuel, and all that. With these powerful turbocharged ground effect cars, it's going to certainly be very useful. I would expect that the people that we have seen that were very good here are going to also be in Kart 87.
Certainly very possible, as long as they want to partake in that series. I know some drivers don't find ovals their cup of tea, so to speak, so it'll be interesting to see which drivers think they are and which drivers think they're not, and who will prefer to go for the more, shall we say, endurance and look after the car kind of season in 58 F1 instead. And I noticed Juha had another slight mistake, ran wide coming off the hairpin and dropped even more time, so it looks like third and fourth are more or less fully set here. And it's now just a question, as Ryan said, to bring the cars home.
Yeah, it's now Gabriele's race to lose. I mean, you need to be careful, and people do not realize it, but this is sometimes one of the hardest moments. When you are all on your own in the lead, you need to keep your rhythm, your momentum and all that. Basically deal with the traffic as he's doing now and all that. And you don't have the intensity or the concentration that you have when you are fighting with another car. So it's not really easy. I mean, it looks as if cruising, but make no mistake, this is not a Sunday walk. I mean, you're not in your car returning home from a Sunday somewhere. You're basically there trying to keep it on the limit all the time.
Talking of the limit, that looked a bit close with the lapping for Del Piccolo on Amaral, I think that was.
Yeah.
There he goes past Bose, so Bose now definitely outside of a chance of picking up third, unless Nielsen, Del Piccolo, Tim
Amaral there still trying to unlock himself. Let's see if he does now. It's like a difficult situation here. Ui, David Sabre barely missed there, hitting Hille. It's the situation, as we were saying, for the guys on the top, where the position is settled, it's very different to the guys who are racing still for fourth position or whatever. So you get some big differentials that we were not waiting for.
Indeed. And it looks like Del Piccolo will be definitely, if he finishes like it is right now, secure second place in the championship, and Juha would need to win for a proper chance at making second place happen for him in the overall championship. And it would seem Anders Nilsson is set with Grant's retirement to finish in fourth place overall in the championship. So the championship, the top 6 championship opportunities looks more or less set. The one difference that could happen, though, I notice now, would be if Del Piccolo retires and Tim Hille wins. That could mean Hille finishing in 5th instead of Grant. Well, let's see, into the hairpin for the second to last time for Del Piccolo. 1 lap to go in a few moments' time.
You will be just wishing there was 1 lap less.
As the white flag is out, and Del Piccolo should be able to cruise home to a massive victory, and what was looking to be a hard-fought one has turned out to be a very, very successful second place in the championship, even with the hardships he endured earlier on. So, as you say, that really proves how close the championship could really have been if Del Piccolo just found his happiness with the car a little bit sooner still.
Yeah, so it was also in real life. Benetton showed really promise towards the end of the season.
Well, into the final hairpin he goes for the final time, and Del Piccolo runs towards the finish line and finishes and wins the final round of the 1986 F1 Championship, with Tim Hille retiring on the final lap.
No, that's unbelievable.
Deary me, Anders Nilsson then will finish in second, I'm fairly sure. Let's see, he actually has a full lap left, as Bors has though finished, so he will finish third.
Very much Prost-like.
Anders
here the points that others lost. Well, it's a shame for Tim. I think that's a reward that he deserved towards the end of this season.
Indeed, as Del Piccolo is doing some very handy donuts. But Anders Nilsson, a few corners left to finish second. Juha Bors finishes third with a few donuts of his own. Tim Hille with a very unfortunate retirement on the final lap. Jules Bouchard finishes fifth, with David Saber looks to be finishing sixth. Seventh with a very smoking badly burnt engine for Bruno Chacon. 8th for Luciano Roja. 9th for Alan Santo in a straight time. Francisco Amaral will have finished 10th, with Cesare Slapinski finishing 11th, and Oscar Tim bringing the AGS home in 12th position, with our retirees being Coxon, Yannick, Nascimento, Equino, Stevens, Miller, Olsen, Remen, Tim, McKeels, Riddle, Hackman, Wilkes and Jakes. But still, with tire smoking and donuts being done, Del Piccolo is celebrating like there's no tomorrow, having finished the championship off. Although it looks like he now has some punctures on the rear tires, so
basically.
Definitely happy, but maybe a bit too happy. And what a race that turned out to be, with quite the attrition, but a lot of good racing along the way.
It was in the end quite a fun race, and I think a recap of the season is mandatory at this point, because this is going to be our last broadcast here. I think it was really exciting. Richard Coxon also mentioned it from the admin point of view. I'm as an admin also here. I'm so happy. I want to thank all the drivers, all the viewers, all the people who have made this possible, because it's been an amazing, absolutely amazing run. I mean, from the models that we got to convert from Chief Wick Gam, who created them from R Factor 2 and kindly gave us permission, the physics done by physics master Richard Wilkes, all the testing and all the things that have gone in the background in this difficult COVID year that we were under lockdown, to have been able to achieve this wonderful season with all races broadcasted, all the full grids and that, it's something that I will always keep in my memory as something that was really a success of this league. I thank you all, guys. I thank you, Jonatan, especially for stepping in for Jason, who unfortunately has suffering real life issues that keep him away. We send him from here our best wishes to be able to cope with all that. But again, thank you to everybody, because it's been absolutely a marvelous ride all along. And I just hope that for the next year we can provide the same excitement and fidelity to everything.
Some very pungent and well thought out views on what has been this season. Looking forward to the next one. Ryan, any thoughts or contemplations for you of this season and this year?
Yeah, it's been it's pretty much the last year or so. It's been pretty difficult with like real life and the pandemic but overall this season I've really enjoyed. I've enjoyed calling this season, and looking forward to the new season, and looking to get back on track and do some races myself. But 2022 should be a good year.
That's certainly true, and we are now joined in the broadcast booth by the race winner, Gabriele Del Piccolo. Congratulations on winning the race and also securing second place in the championship.
Yeah. I'm really happy for this race. The season ended up in a very good way, and I have to congratulate with Brian Janik, because he make me sweat very, very hardly, very hard to keep him behind. Ooh. But I have to congratulate with him. I would share my victory to him, because he equally deserved the victory as I.
Yeah, he was driving very well.
Joined your channel.
And it's also, we were watching the race and we were seeing several things, but of course nothing is the same as when you are looking at it from inside the cockpit. We were wondering, Gabriele, when Brian went into the pit, half the race, and he came out of the pits and he was nearly 1 second quicker than you. And every lap test was going by, we were thinking, why is Gabriele not going into the pits? I mean, we were worried because it was like you had a window of opportunity to go in the pits, to do the same as him and keep there, but you were still holding on, even if Brian was for us so much faster. Were you really so sure that your tires were going to keep up for the rest of the race?
A bit, because I picked up the hard tires on the hard compound on the rear tires, and the soft on front. So the tire wear
User joined your channel.
wasn't a big trouble. I got some understeer in some corner and towards the end, but towards the end the car was nearly good, not as with new tires, but I still continuing to go on.
Microphone muted.
And
Yes, but you took a pit stop and you took a late pit stop. But if Brian had been on the track, would you have also done that pit stop, or would you have tried to stay out in front?
no, stay out.
Oof. That could have been very close. That's what we were wondering about.
Because it's a splash pool track.
Microphone activated.
In the middle of a town, and then a street circuit is a track where everything came wrong, everything can end up your race. And I when he went to the pits, I had a sort of relief because I was alone. I have no more pressure.
Okay. So you're ending this season in a very good way, in a hike. Are you looking forward to the next one? Looking forward to any series in special?
Well, as far as you know, I'm a turbo car lover, and well, but I will try also the late 50s cars. Well, I will try.
Well,
Okay, it's going to be great to see you there.
it will be.
Congratulations on these championships. Very well fought for you.
Thank you very much. Thank you for the broadcast, for the work you did all the year long. Fascinating, serious, very impressive how your job is entertaining people is absolutely fantastic. Also, people is following me my races in Italy because of you.
Oh, that's great to hear. So the next time we can interview you also in Italian. You can speak some words for them in Italian, as they do in Formula One. They say now in your own language, and you can do it.
Yeah, would be a very nice thing to speak also in Italian. You know.
Okay.
Well, congratulations once again on a great race.
Bravi tutti ragazzi, stagione è stata bellissima, piena di colpi di scena, piena di grandissimi piloti, le trasmissioni sono state eccezionali e sono orgoglioso di poter partecipare a questa serie che è veramente fatta da Dio, come Dio comanda, veramente. Bravi ragazzi.
Ah, bene, io capisco quasi tutto. Bueno, very well. So we also have more people here who did the race. Juha Boss is also with us.
Who finished third and didn't quite pick up second in the championship, finishing third, but I suppose all in all you're quite happy with that.
I'm happy. Gabriele was much faster, so I would never have picked up that second place. So congratulations to him. He was very quick, well deserved.
Very much a Prost-like performance, finishing there at third place when nobody even
Yeah,
waited that.
Yeah, when nobody's even looking at it. Yes. I thought I had a good car, but I lost a lot of time behind a few people. Nearly got wiped out by a car I tried to lap. So, and in the end, I misjudged my fuel.
Ah,
What
I'm
about the
very
fuel and the
unclassed-like.
brakes?
So,
Did you have any problems with any of that, fuel or
no,
brakes?
only fuel.
Okay.
Brakes were fine. I tested that, but I misjudged the fuel completely. That's why I had to let go on this.
well, that's a bit unfortunate, but you picked up third, which is a nice way to finish off the championship, and I suppose looking forward with 1958 F1 around the corner next year, and also the DRM and Kart 87. Any of those tickle your fancy, so to speak, and something you will be looking forward to partake in?
DRM in Formula One, certainly. I hope we'll see a lot of people in there. But it may be a bit less, but it's especially F1 I'm interested in. So I'll try to do as well as this year.
That's a good call, as good a call as any, and I suppose I don't know if you have anyone following the races, your races, but if you wish to, then you could also share.
No, I don't think I have anybody watching me. I think that's Gabriele has his own fan club watching, but I don't.
Very well, then congratulations on third both in this race and in the championship. A very
You?
well driven championship overall, I'd say.
Thank you.
And to complete the podium, we got here also Anders Nilsson.
Hey,
Hey, quite the, shall we say, quiet race for you this time around, but another second place.
yeah, but it was a fun race. I had a good battle with you, and I don't know what happened at the start, but I made off to third, I think, and I picked one compound harder than I have practice on because I was afraid of the temperature, so I couldn't get him up really. So I locked the brake for the hairpin, so I got a huge flat spot on them. That's why
Ooh.
I had to pit because it was impossible to drive, and I switched to the softer compound, and the car came alive, and I patched up you again, and we had a fun battle for a couple of laps. I don't know how long. It went on forever, it felt, but it was fun, and managed to get through and gap him, and at the end, I had quite a gap to you, and I couldn't catch Hille, so I started to boost down. I mean, I blew the engine on Mexico. I didn't want to do it again. Richard blew his engine this race, so I boosted down, and suddenly I was second. So I mean, it feels good to end this season on a high. So yeah, and Gabriele was untouchable today, so that doesn't. So yeah, I'm very happy, and it was a fun race. The battles, yeah.
Did you get the feeling when you were racing over the season, as the season went on, that you were basically racing with a Russian roulette behind you?
Not yeah. From halfway, I felt like I couldn't trust the engine, and I think after Detroit, I got yeah, and then I blew it on Paul Ricard, and yeah, so
Yeah, because I mean, we saw a distinct, at least that's how I feel it, a distinct difference in the performance from you from the beginning to the end. And it was not the driving, it was just that you were looking so much more cautious. We know that the Ferrari was not evolving as much over this season as other cars were and all that, but it seemed that your driving completely changed in that you were like, careful, like taking it easy, like not really trusting the car.
yeah, and also try. I mean, maybe I asked too much for it in Detroit. I mean, yeah, in
Mm.
this race, I took the turtle approach, so to speak, and it went well. I mean, I was, yeah. So that's right. That's a good spotting of you. That's and
Okay.
the other guys picked up the pace and the cars, and it has been a amazing season, and you guys have done a great job in the booth. So hats off to you guys.
Okay. Thank you. I
Yes.
believe that more or less wraps up for it.
Well, I'd like to ask Anders very quickly. For next year, we have F1 58, obviously, Card 87, and the DRMs. Any
The 58, obviously, for me. I like those DRMs. Yes, maybe the kart. It depends on how much time I have.
Yeah, there's always going to be one of cards for the card, and also, as we know, for the 500 milers, a lot of extra cards. So it's always to have an opportunity there for any quick driver who is interested in at least doing those events.
Quite so, and well, thank you to all our drivers joining us tonight for some post-race chats and giving their views on what has been. I would like to echo the sentiment of Alberto, and I think all of us would wish Jason as well as a recovery as he can have from what he's dealing with at the moment with real life. And thank you to everyone for tuning in and watching this series. It's been great fun watching it and for me to broadcast the final 2 rounds. And from what I've heard, the drivers have enjoyed it immensely to drive in this. So just awesome to be a part of. And yeah, I almost feel a little bit sad that it's over, so I'm a little bit lost for words. Let's see, next week is
Imola.
Imola indeed, for the Deutsche Meisterschaft, I think it's called specifically.
Deutsche Rennsportmeisterschaft.
Thank you. I was very close.
Close enough for government use.
Quite. For the endurance side of things, it's a 1,000-kilometer race around Imola. There are I believe, one or two cars available if anyone wants to drive, and if anyone wants to share a car, I think there's still a couple of drivers possibly looking for someone to join up with them. So if you'd like to give it a go, there are both GT cars and obviously the prototypes available for that. But yeah, apart from that, thank you everyone for an awesome series and a great year in this F186 Championship, and I hope we'll be able to go out with a bang in the USAC Championship races as well, with 3 of those still to go in this year. But for now, this is Jonatan Åcerclinth, Alberto Ibañez, Anders Nilsson, Gabriele Del Piccolo, Juha Boos, and Ryan Walker signing off for now, and we look forward to bringing you more action soon, and definitely more F1 action next year with the 1958 Championship. But until a couple of weeks from now, have a great time, take care of yourselves, and we'll be live again in 2 weeks' time at the normal time. Good night, everyone.